Unveiling the Shadows, the controversial legacy of Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill is often celebrated as one of the greatest leaders of the 20th century, known for his indomitable spirit during World War II. However, like many historical figures, Churchill's legacy is complex, marked by both remarkable achievements and controversial actions. Below are 13 facts that delve into the lesser-known, and sometimes shocking, aspects of his life and career. Fact number 1. Opponent of women's suffrage. Winston Churchill's stance on women's suffrage is complex and evolved over his long political career. In the early 20th century, specifically during his time as a member of parliament for the Conservative Party before switching to the Liberal Party in 1904, Churchill was known to oppose women's suffrage. His opposition was not isolated but shared among many contemporaries who feared that granting women the right to vote would disrupt the societal and familial structures of the time. However, it's crucial to note that by 1911, as Home Secretary, Churchill expressed a more nuanced view, suggesting a willingness to support a limited form of women's suffrage. Despite this, his earlier opposition, including his role in the suppression of the suffragette movement, notably during the Black Friday protests on November 18, 1910, has been a critical point of contention in assessing his legacy as a progressive leader. Number 2. Role in the Bengal Famine. The Bengal Famine of 1943 is one of the most devastating events in Indian history, with estimates suggesting that up to 3 million people died of starvation, malnutrition, and related diseases. Critics argue that British colonial policies under Prime Minister Winston Churchill significantly contributed to the severity of the famine. Churchill's government prioritized the allocation of shipping resources to the British war effort over the urgent need for food supplies in Bengal. Additionally, wartime policies, such as the destruction of crops and boats to prevent Japanese advancement, exacerbated the situation. Churchill's dismissive and racially charged remarks about the suffering of the Indian people, allegedly questioning the famine's severity by noting the continued population growth in India, have been widely cited as evidence of his indifference or even hostility towards India's plight during this period. These actions and attitudes have sparked significant debate over his legacy, particularly concerning British colonialism and its impact on India. Number 3. Advocacy for chemical weapons. Winston Churchill's advocacy for the use of chemical weapons marks a controversial chapter in his military leadership. Post-World War I, during the Russian Civil War, 1917–1922, Churchill, then serving as the Secretary of State for War and Air, argued for the use of chemical weapons against the Bolsheviks to spread a lively terror, according to documents from the period. This advocacy was rooted in his belief in the efficiency of such weapons as a means of warfare and his perception of the Bolsheviks as a particularly inhumane enemy that justified extraordinary measures. Churchill's stance on chemical warfare was not unique for the time but is often criticized today for its ethical implications and disregard for the suffering these weapons cause. His support for chemical weapons is part of a broader debate on his legacy, reflecting the complexities of moral judgment in the context of warfare and national security. Number 4. Operation Unthinkable. Operation Unthinkable was a highly classified strategy developed by the British military on the behest of Winston Churchill in May 1945, shortly after the victory in Europe during World War II. The plan envisaged a full-scale assault against the Soviet Union, aiming to impose the will of the Western Allies and counter any potential Soviet domination in Europe. The ambitious strategy proposed rearming up to 100,000 German prisoners of war from the Wehrmacht to fight alongside the British and American forces. The initial phase of the plan called for a surprise attack on July 1, 1945, aimed at Soviet forces in Germany and Poland. However, military planners quickly realized the enormity of the undertaking and its potential to ignite another devastating conflict. The operation was deemed unthinkable due to the overwhelming Soviet military strength and the moral implications of rearming former Nazi troops. Ultimately, the plan was never executed, serving as a stark reminder of the fragile post-war balance and Churchill's deep-seated mistrust of Soviet intentions. Number 5. Alcohol consumption. Winston Churchill's penchant for alcohol is well documented and has become part of his larger-than-life persona. Throughout his life, Churchill enjoyed a variety of alcoholic beverages, famously declaring that I have taken more out of alcohol than alcohol has taken out of me. His drink of choice ranged from whiskey, particularly Johnny Walker, to champagne, with Pole Roger being his favorite brand, a preference that led the company to name a cuvee in his honor after his death. During the Boer War in the late 1890s, Churchill reportedly took 60 bottles of alcohol with him, showcasing his early taste for spirits. Moreover, during his visit to the United States during Prohibition, 1920 to 1933, he obtained a doctor's note prescribing him unlimited alcohol for medicinal purposes, a clever work around the stringent laws of the time. Churchill's relationship with alcohol, while often viewed with admiration or amusement, also sparked criticism and concern, especially considering the responsibilities he bore as a leader. Number 6. Emotional expressiveness. Emotional expressiveness, unlike the Stoic image often associated with leaders of his time, Churchill was known for his emotional expressiveness, often being moved to tears in Parliament. This vulnerability, while making him relatable to some, was considered uncharacteristic and surprising for a man in his position of power during that era. Number 7. The Tony Pandy riots. In November 1910, the Tony Pandy riots escalated from a coal miners' strike in the Rhondda Valley, South Wales, over wage disputes and working conditions. Winston Churchill, then Home Secretary, faced criticism for his role in the government's response. The unrest saw violent clashes between the miners and the police. Churchill's decision to send troops was controversial. While he did not order troops to directly intervene at first, their presence heightened tensions. It's a point of historical debate how much Churchill's actions were to blame for the escalation. The event became a sore spot in his relationship with the working classes and has remained a contentious part of his legacy, particularly in Wales, where the memory of the government's response to the strike is still a topic of resentment for some. Number 8. Gallipoli campaign failure. The Galipoli campaign, which took place from April 25, 1915, to January 9, 1916, was a failed attempt by the Allied powers to control the sea route from Europe to Russia by capturing the Ottoman capital of Constantinople, now Istanbul. Winston Churchill, as the First Lord of the Admiralty, was a leading proponent of this strategy. The campaign was poorly executed, resulting in over 250,000 Allied casualties and failing to achieve its strategic objectives. Churchill's association with this military blunder significantly damaged his political career for a time, leading to his resignation from the Admiralty. The Gallipoli failure is often cited as a major blemish on Churchill's record, reflecting the high stakes and often catastrophic risks of wartime leadership decisions. Number 9. Opposition to Indian independence. Winston Churchill's opposition to Indian independence is well documented, marked by his resistance to the decolonization efforts led by figures such as Mahatma Gandhi. Churchill's tenure as a political leader saw him frequently expressing beliefs in the British Empire's civilizing mission and the superiority of British rule, which were common views among British imperialists of the time. His disparaging remarks about Gandhi and the Indian independence movement reflect a deeply entrenched colonial mindset. These views have been widely criticized, especially in light of modern principles of self-determination and equality. Churchill's stance on India is a significant aspect of his legacy that is reassessed in the context of his broader contributions to history. Number 10. The Dresden bombings. The Allied bombing of Dresden from February 13 to 15, 1945, remains one of the most controversial actions of World War II. Under Churchill's leadership, British and American forces launched a massive air assault on the German city of Dresden, resulting in the deaths of approximately 25,000 people, mostly civilians, and the destruction of the historic city center. Critics have argued that the bombing was not militarily necessary, as Dresden was known more as a cultural center than a significant military target at that stage of the war. The morality of the bombings, including Churchill's role in authorizing the attack, has been debated extensively. This event underscores the ethical complexities and the harsh realities of decision-making in wartime, contributing to the ongoing debate about Churchill's legacy as a leader. Number 11. Support for eugenics. Winston Churchill's involvement in the eugenics movement reflects a controversial aspect of his beliefs that aligns with broader societal views of the early 20th century. As Home Secretary, Churchill played a role in the passage of the Mental Deficiency Act of 1913, a piece of legislation that sought to institutionalize individuals classified as feeble-minded or morally defective. This act was influenced by the eugenics movement, which advocated for the improvement of the human race through controlled breeding and, in its more extreme forms, the sterilization of those deemed unfit. Churchill's support for such measures has been criticized in hindsight, viewed as a misstep in an otherwise celebrated career. His advocacy for eugenics is a stark reminder of the prevalence of such ideologies in the past and serves as a cautionary tale of how societal norms and values can evolve. Number 12. Health measures during World War II. During World War II, Winston Churchill's health and personal habits required unique accommodations, particularly his well-known penchant for smoking cigars. To facilitate his travels, a specialized pressurized chamber, colloquially known as the life pod, was designed to enable him to fly safely without foregoing his cigars. This chamber was equipped with an air circulation system, a telephone, and other necessities, ensuring Churchill could work and rest comfortably during flights. The creation of the life pod is a testament to the lengths to which Churchill's staff would go to accommodate his needs, reflecting both the technological ingenuity of the time and the exceptional status accorded to Churchill's personal and health requirements during the war. Number 13. Irish independence and the Black and Tans. Churchill's role during the Irish War of Independence, 1919 to 1921, has been a source of significant criticism, particularly regarding his involvement in the deployment of the Black and Tans. This force, comprised largely of demobilized British soldiers, was sent to Ireland to suppress the Irish Republican Army, IRA, and the broader movement for independence. The Black and Tans became infamous for their harsh and often brutal tactics, including reprisals against the civilian population, which exacerbated the conflict and contributed to the long-standing animosity between Britain and Ireland. Churchill, then Secretary of State for War, was instrumental in the decision to deploy this force, a decision that has marred his legacy in the context of Anglo-Irish relations. The actions of the Black and Tans, under Churchill's oversight, are viewed by some as contributing significantly to the enduring tensions and historical grievances between the two nations.